Guys, I can't believe I never made this video. See, I started posting on social media close to 4 years ago, and there's this great video that I made for Instagram which dealt with the different arm positions that we can achieve once we let go of the ball toss on the serve. So there's basically 3 arm positions that you can achieve. There's a forward arm position, there's a vertical arm position, and there is the backwards arm position. And I made this video for Instagram. It did quite well. I reposted it several times, but I never explained whether this is important, what style will suit your serve best. So in today's video, I'm finally gonna address the different toss arm positions that you can achieve after you release the ball on your serve. Now, before we get started, all these things that I'm going to show you are correct. So you can have a forward arm position, you can have a vertical arm position, or you can have a backward arm position. There's nothing wrong with either one of these, but I'm going to tell you what is wrong, and that is when you toss the ball on your serve and you don't go up at all. So in other words, when the toss arm gets stuck at the moment of release, which is usually around the eye level. Now, unfortunately, your shoulders will be level. So the important thing when it comes to the toss arm is that you achieve a tilt on your serve. So what's going to happen on the serve naturally when your toss arm continues to go up after you release the ball. So if you release the ball and continue going up the toss arm, now your non-dominant shoulder is going to be above your dominant shoulder and your shoulders are going to be tilted. Now naturally, when you drop the racket and you start accelerating upwards towards the ball, the shoulder positions will reverse, and now your dominant shoulder is going to be above your non-dominant shoulder, and you get what is called the cartwheeling effect. So you go from this position to this position, and this is part of the vertical momentum that you can achieve on a serve, and it's something that is a fundamental element of the serve, and this is something that you definitely need. Now here's where it gets stylistic. So as long as your toss arm is going up after you release the ball, you are fine. And you can have the toss arm face forward because this will give you enough tilt. So you don't necessarily have to go vertical, you can be forward. For example, John Isner does this. He has a toss arm position that is more forward facing. Personally, I prefer this style as well. And what I find at the recreational level, that the more upwards you go with the toss arm, the more likely you're going to start throwing the ball behind. See, a lot of players, when they try to make the arm be more vertical or backwards, they end up holding on to the ball too long and the toss goes backwards. So if you're one of those players, as long as you're going up with the toss arm after you release it, it's perfectly fine to have the toss arm face forward. You will still achieve a tilt and you will be able to cartwheel into the serve. Now, I will add that the vertical position of the toss arm looks a lot cooler than the forward position. So if I toss the ball and I continue going vertical with my arm, this looks a lot cooler. It looks more aesthetic, and there's many players on the Pro Tour that have this technique. Now, if you can pull this off, so if this doesn't influence your toss, by all means, you can try it out. There's a couple of advantages that you might gain from this. So it's going to be a lot easier to get that hip into the court when that toss arm is going further back. And when you're leaning forward, it is useful to have the non-dominant hip slightly going forward. So you can try it out. It's a lot easier to do this when the arm goes further up after the release. So you can see here, my arm is going a little bit further up, and now it's a lot easier to get that hip going into the court. And the extreme version of this would be when the arm actually goes backward. So this is going to be a continuation of the toss arm going behind the player, something like this. And this is very common on the WTA Tour. So you'll see a lot of WTA players have their toss arm actually go behind. And I'm going to advise you not to do this because this is one of the flaws on the WTA serve. See, on an ATP serve, players are going to be bending backwards more. So they'll bend their body in this way, while on the WTA, players will not do this. Very few are able to bend backwards. They will be more straight here, but they will bend forward, and this toss arm plays a big role in that. So you will very frequently see WTA players go past the vertical line with the toss arm. The toss arm will actually go further back, and now they will bend severely forward like this and not much backward. And this is not an optimal way to load your serve. You don't get a lot of energy from straightening this part of your body. This is a relatively weak part of the torso. There's a lot more strength in the lower chest area, in your abdomen. So when you bend backwards, straightening the body this way is a lot more powerful than straightening the body this way. So I want to advise you not to have the toss arm go past the vertical point if you are unable to bend backwards and forward. See, if you can do both, you're probably going to be okay. And there's a player called Andy Roddick that did it both ways. He was able to go forward and backward at the same time, and he had one of the most powerful serves in the world. But most players are not flexible enough to do that. So if you are able to bend your body forwards with the hip going into the court and also backwards, now having the toss arm go past the vertical line might work for you. But my experience at the recreational level, most players will, number one, not be able to control the toss. So if they intend to have the toss arm go backwards like this, they'll start throwing the ball behind, and also they will be bending into the court too much this way and not enough backwards this way. So for that reason, the two toss arm positions that I recommend for the recreational level is the vertical toss arm, where you let go of the ball and you go to the vertical line like this. This is fine. And also the easiest one to pull off is the John Isner style, where you toss the ball and you slightly continue to go up. This is going to be the easiest one when we're talking about controlling the toss and having the ability to consistently throw it in front of the baseline. And also it will give you a natural tilted position of the shoulders. Now, is it possible to go forward with the hip when we have the toss arm pointing forward? Absolutely, and I happen to have this technique as well. So there's absolutely no problem getting the hip inside of the court even when that toss arm is going forward. You can see here I can still get that hip in even though my arm is positioned more forward after the toss release. So guys, fundamentals versus style on the serve is something that's super important to understand. So the fundamental part of today's lesson is the fact that the toss arm must continue to go up after we release the ball so that we can get our shoulders in a tilted position and can therefore achieve the cartwheeling movement. Well, what's a stylistic element of the serve is how high up that toss arm goes. And it's perfectly fine to experiment with these different styles. You will quickly find out which one suits the best. In my case, I can do all three, as I demonstrated in my video that I made a long time ago and never explained properly, which is incredible I didn't do that. But now finally I've done it. I explained what the toss arm positioning is all about. So I can do all three, but I am by far most comfortable with the forward toss arm positioning because I could easily throw the ball in front, and I do feel a little bit of an inconsistency when I start getting that toss arm too vertical or even backwards. My tosses start to go backwards a little bit. So personally, I've messed around with all three, but I'm going to stick with the forward toss arm positioning because it gives me the most control on my toss and it doesn't influence my cartwheel in a bad way.